title, right? And I'm coming to you live from the academy, right? Our academy studio. And it's a leadership academy in community building economics in Buffalo, New York. And we're sharing with our TikTok community, our YouTube community, what we call our academy menu, right? So we have this menu, and we have selections from this menu, and the menu is built off of a part of our selection is life wealth and material wealth. So throughout the month, we have the first Friday of the month, we do one of our life wealth uh, components of our menu, which is we call Physical Friday. I've been doing that one recently. We've been doing some martial arts, some karate on Zoom, and we've been doing it live. The second week of the month was the one we just had was Tech Tuesday, where we looked at technical analysis of financial markets. Just looking at price movement, volume in the financial markets. And this is the third week, right? And this is the crypto week, Crypto Monday. And then next week we're going to have Black political economy. But all of these when I say what we're going to have, all of these things are a portion of the academy menu, which is a combination of life wealth and material wealth. And again, the academy is a leadership academy in community building economics, Buffalo, New York. And the academy is our dojo, right? Is where people, the pioneers, where pioneers go to polish their spirit in the realm of economics and financial literacy. So today, right, our curriculum is cryptos, right? But I think like what we want to talk about when we talk about cryptos, or what I talk about cryptos, and maybe part of my team might want to chime in a little bit, is the reason it's significant is it has to do with, especially those of us in the retail sector, retail, right? It's significant to our personal finance. Okay, can you show the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So right here, this is our introduction here, right? Um, let's go to the next slide, please.
Alrighty.
Okay. So the theme here, right, is cryptocurrency, blockchain, and the global economy. And this podcast, the one that we're on today, is going to explore this area of economic and financial literacy, particularly in the area of cryptocurrencies. We're not going to talk too much about blockchain today, but over the series, right? We're going to be doing the rest of the series throughout the spring. We'll shut down for the summer, and then we'll pick it up again in the fall. But right now, we're just going to talk about this idea of cryptocurrencies.
Give me on this slide.
Okay. So I'm going to explore there's a lot of technological innovation taking place. If you've been following any of our past podcasts, right, the title of this podcast is the Paradigm Shift Podcast, and what we recognize, especially since typically throughout the 21st century, right, there's been a change in the economic environment, the political economic environment that we live in. And in 2020 with um, the pandemic and the government response to the pandemic and the impact on our economy, the local economy, the U.S. economy, the global economy, that was for us, right? Those of us here at the academy, we recognize that change was at a epoch level, right? Ground shaking. It changed the world, and we feel that to respond to that change in the world, right, we need to change the way we look at the world, right? And a paradigm is this, like it's like a body of knowledge, and it's what you find significant. And myself as an economist, the shift that we're doing is we're shifting from what we call economics of scarcity to economics of abundance. But today we're talking about the technological innovation associated with that shift, right? And this is this whole new area of blockchain, crypto, right? And some people say that this shift, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, right, is going to be, and also including the metaverse and Web3, right? These changes are going to be even bigger than the internet revolution of the late 90s, early 2000s, and the one that allows us to do this podcast right now. Okay. Um, so what we want to talk about is this idea of like I want to break down a little bit about like what is a currency, what is a cryptocurrency in relationship to the idea of currency, and why is it significant to you, our TikTok viewers. And again, if you want other people to participate in this, just tap your screen and ask them to share, right, or share to somebody else, right. But again, this is a paradigm shift, but it's relevant to you. How we doing on the slides? We
Almost there. 2 seconds.
okay. All right. So in terms of the slides, uh, you know, I'm just gonna talk about it a little bit. I'm quite sure some of you out there in our audience are familiar with Robert Kiyosaki and his book Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was a monumental book, right? He just broke down the some basic personal finance concepts.
We in there.
Okay, right. So, okay. Look at that Paradigm Shift podcast. Let me get another slide, please. Keep moving. Right, cryptocurrencies, and one more. Okay, right here. Right. So what we see is that Robert Kiyosaki really like helped us understand the financial habits. The financial habit, it says middle class, but it's really middle income class, right? And the financial habits of the rich. And so if you look at the financial habits of the poor, right, you got a job, money comes in, and then it just goes straight out in the form of expenses. The financial habits of the middle income class, you got a job, you might be making a little bit more money, and now you buy some liabilities, but you think that they are assets, right? And it just goes out. But what we're going to focus on, right, is the financial habits of the rich, right? You get some money, right, and you want to build up your asset column, right? So if you look over here, right, where it says assets, real estate, stocks, bonds, notes, intellectual property, right? But part of what's in that asset column, right, is your savings. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right. So what a real asset is if you look at it here, it's like is what you could put into your asset column, right? So a lot of us, right, a lot of us working class, we really have not paid a lot of attention to building up our asset column, right? But building up the asset column, building up assets that is pretty much real simple, right? A liability is what you owe, and an asset is what you own, right? Assets put money into your pocket, liabilities take money out of your pocket. Okay, so so a real asset, right, uh, is some kind of physical asset that has some kind of intrinsic value that people are able to have some kind of ownership, and that ownership will show up in the asset in the portfolio of different individuals, right? And part of what we're doing is we want to take a look at portfolios, right? The asset column in those portfolios, and share with you like how do we build the asset column in that portfolio. So one kind of asset is a digital asset, right? In a digital asset, again, we're in this environment where you got the real assets, but digital, we're in a digital world, right? The 20th century was the industrial age, right? Now we're in the information age, the knowledge age, in the digital age, and it includes digital assets. And what we want to talk about today is, what is a digital asset, and is it something that's viable in your financial statement? So a digital asset, anything that of digital that has value and is established with ownership. Include right now you got like some digital assets can include photos, manuscripts, right? But the particular digital asset that we're going to talk about here, right, is cryptocurrencies. Can you go to the next one? All right. Okay. So a cryptocurrency is a digital or virtual currency secured by cryptography and based on a network that is distributed across a large numbers of computers. And that network, right, we're going to talk about that network. We call that a blockchain network. Next slide, please. Okay. So we're going to talk about like what is currency, and cryptocurrency is a particular version of that currency. The currency is generally a accepted form of payment. Is issued by a government, circulated within its jurisdiction. So, like right in the United States of America, our currency is the dollar, right? The U.S. dollar. Generally, that currency is, over history, right? The dollar was, as good as gold at one point in U.S. history, right? In the 18th century, the 17th century, 18th century, the dollar was good as gold, right? And a lot of times, um, the like you would move gold from one place to another, right? So you'd have gold coins, but it would be the value of the gold. Um, a good part of the 20th century, the dollar was good as gold. But then at the in the early 1970s, we went off the gold standard, right? When and when I say the gold standard, the U.S. dollar was backed by gold, and then in the 1970s, under the Nixon administration, we went off the gold standard and we went on a fiat standard, right? A standard that where the value of the U.S. dollar was based on U.S. Hegemony, right? And the U.S. government decreed, right, that the U.S. dollar had value. And we might get into this historical piece at another later date, right? But after World War II, the dollar was good as gold, right? We were in that unique situation that people wanted both dollars and U.S. products. But in the 1970s, right, a lot of these other countries were saying, if the dollar is good as gold, give us the gold, right? And then there was a lot of exporting of gold to like other countries in Europe in general, for example, right? And then the United States started losing its gold, right? And Nixon took us off the gold standard and say, look, we're not giving up our gold, right? And then we introduced this new era of fiat currency, right? And this fiat currency has come to dominate the world. Also, for over the last 50 years, currency has dominated the world. And we'll talk a little bit about what is the significance of this fiat currency dominating the world. But let's see. So currency is generally accepted as a form of payment. The value of any currency fluctuates. And that's true. And there's kind of like different tiers, right? You got the first tier of currency, fiat currency, which is like the U.S. dollar, right? The Japanese yen, the Chinese yuan, right? Then you got second tier. Oh, first tier would be the euro, right? But then you got currencies like some of the we call third world countries, or the economically underdeveloped countries where their currencies are pretty weak. Like people wouldn't really want to do trade, like currencies in Venezuela, El Salvador, Central African Republic, right? They have currencies, but those currencies are really hit by significant inflation. And generally, in terms of the global economy, people don't really want to do trade in those kinds of currencies, right? And so, even though the U.S. dollar is a fiat currency since the 1970s, right? It is by default or de facto, right? Is become the global currency, even though it's a fiat currency. So, meaning that many countries and businesses accept the U.S. dollar for payment all over the planet. Okay. Now, we got this new cryptocurrency that is coming into existence that's challenging, or at least some people feel that it's a challenge of the fiat currency's hegemony over the last 50 years. Next slide, please. I'll say, what is a cryptocurrency? A cryptocurrency is a form of a digital asset and is based on a network that is distributed across a large number of computers. Again, that's the blockchain. Now, what's interesting about the cryptocurrencies, right? A lot of them are decentralized, right? And as a consequence of them being decentralized, they exist outside the control of governments and central authorities. And that's a two-edged sword, right? Is that right now, like the cryptocurrencies as we know it, it first came into existence with Bitcoin in 2008 during the Great Recession, right? Um, and so and it's in terms of the global arena, it has risen, exponentially, right, in an accelerating way, and now it's on the global arena, right. When I first became familiar with Bitcoin, right, I'm in Buffalo, right. I was thinking it's like there's this thing we used to call about Ithaca dollars, right, local currencies that people were trying to use, like instead of using barter, right? They would use these currencies as a medium of exchange, and I really didn't pay attention to it. But from the 2008, right, to 2023, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin in particular, have exploded, right? And they've exploded in terms of price, and some people would also say that they exploded in terms of value, too, also, right? Um, but existing outside of the control of government. So, that, part of the early days of this cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular, right, existed outside of government. Sometimes it was used for criminal activity, right? People talked about that significantly, right? The Silk Road and using crypto, Bitcoin to facilitate transactions outside of the purview of government. But that's one argument. But the truth is that a lot of money laundering, a lot of the U.S. dollar. There's a lot of criminal activity that's associated with the U.S. dollar also, right? But again, right, is here. Some people will say that cryptocurrencies take, consume a lot of energy. Um, but if you think about it, does it really, like in relationship to the hegemony of the U.S. dollar? In part, the U.S. dollar is maintains its weight because we are the most powerful or militarily powerful nation on the planet, right? Now, being the most military powerful nation on the planet, that takes a lot of energy, right? So, what backs the U.S. dollar is this whole global structure that does include the military and U.S. hegemony, and U.S. hegemony does take a lot of energy to maintain that hegemony. And cryptocurrencies, even though it does take energy, right, not to the extent of what facilitates the U.S. dollar and its hegemony across the planet. Okay. Um, okay. Let's go. Let's keep going here. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. So we're talking about currencies, right? And what I want to share is that So right here on this slide, we got money, right? Um, so money is a system of value that facilitates the exchange of a good or facilitates the exchange of goods and services. Typically, money is considered a unit of account, right? So like for example, we want to talk about what's in our bank account. Or maybe say like if we talk about the gross domestic product, for example, instead of adding up all the goods and services in the economy, um, we'll add up the value of all the goods and services in the economy, and we'll add them up using the U.S. dollar to add up all that value. So it's a unit of account. It's a medium of exchange, right? It facilitates the exchange process, right? Um, and it's a store of value. Now, what we're going to talk about later, right, is that there is a distinction between currency and money. And some people say this distinction is pronounced, and in part, the future of global transactions is going to be built off of understanding this distinction between currency and money. And again, if you're interested, if you want other people to, those my TikTok audience here, you want other people to participate in this conversation, just tap the screen and have people share. Right. Um, let's go to the next one. What is money? You got that, sir? There you go. Key takeaways. What is money? Money is a medium of exchange, allows people to do business, and in our world of specialization and division of labor, right? Um, in we have money facilitates that process of specializing and division of labor. Old school, right? Before there was money, people were bartering, right? You would exchange one good for another good, and we moved into money, right? Which became that that tool that facilitated the exchange process. You got one product here, you got another product there. So instead of having to double the coincidence of wants, right, you could use money to facilitate that exchange process. Um, examples of bartering now. Well, it's still the same thing. If you got a product, I got a product. We exchange it with no money in between, right? And you perceive what I have as value. I perceive what you have as value. Um, that would be a barter exchange. If we're exchanging products, right? Um, or like I would mow my lawn, and maybe I'll give you some kind of service for mowing the lawn, that kind of thing, right? But money, a lot of people, if it's mowing the lawn, a lot of people want to get paid for mowing the lawn, not again necessarily the exchange of services. But great question, right? But there's still a barter. But what allows the global economy to grow is money as a medium of exchange, right? But again, as we continue. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Um, okay.
What's going on, folks? We're taking a little moment to acknowledge the TikTok. We have brother Khalil Muhammad live on TikTok with Dr. Haynes.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're going back and forth between the YouTube and the TikTok.
Okay, yeah, and I appreciate that. If anybody, whether you're on YouTube, we got people here who could take those questions, and we could share those questions, right? But I think that like what is money? Again, it's something that facilitates the exchange process. It's a medium of exchange. It's a unit of account, and it's a store of value. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, what is money continued? Let's see here. All right, now it's on here. Like, if you see the if you could see my PowerPoint right here. Uh, money for historically, money's taken on the form of agricultural commodities, grain, livestock, or wealth, right? Wealth in particular, right? Um, but like as we move into this new digital age, right? So it used to be cowrie shells, right? It used to be copper, silver, gold, right? And then like when you used to have notes that when people didn't want to carry the gold, the silver, the copper with them, right? They would hold it one plate and they would have this note, that would reflect the gold note, a silver note, right? And just carry the paper, right? Throughout the time period where when ships were made of wood, right? When ships were made of wood, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th century during the um, mercantile time period, right? It was gold. It was gold and silver, right? And that was the money. And then throughout the 20th century, early parts of the 21st century, it used to be paper. So here in the United States, the paper, which was backed by gold initially, early parts of the late parts of the 19th century, early parts of the 20th century, right? The U.S. dollar, talking about the U.S. in particular, it was backed by gold, right? And so for almost 100 years, right, that was the money, right? Money being backed by the U.S. dollar being backed by gold. But now in the late parts of the 20th century, early parts of the 21st century, right, the U.S. dollar is not backed by gold, right? And the thing is, and this has been the concern of a lot of people, is that because it's not backed by gold, right? We do have a central bank that could pretty much just print money or create money, right? They don't nowadays they don't necessarily print it; they create money, and whenever the federal the federal government needs money or uses money, like for example, like today, right? The, the 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 president said that um, the federal government is going to guarantee the money that was in the Silicon Valley Bank, right, and guarantee the money that was in the Signature Bank over and beyond the $250,000 FDIC guarantee, right? So
Of course they are.
yeah, what do you mean? Like, so when you say, of course they are, but how do they do it? Right? Is that not like you and I, like we really can't um, we can't counterfeit money. Matter of fact, I was just telling one of the podcast members recently, right, that there was a young kid, a college student in my environment, who actually did try to do an exchange, a underground exchange, an illegal exchange, a drug exchange, right, using counterfeit money, right, and the use of that counterfeit money cost him his life, right. But our government, right, they don't make counterfeit money, right, but when it comes to you know, keeping the wheels of the economy moving. Right? Like for example, during the Great Recession of 2008, quantitative easing, we just like put in huge amounts of money, 2008, right? And that generated a lot of inflation, mostly in the form of assets, right? And most working class, right? They weren't holding their, most working class, we don't, as working class, we typically don't pay attention to what's going on in our asset column, not significantly, right? We tend to focus on income, right? But then in 2020, right, another huge amount of money, right, got put into the system, right? And this amount of money on top of the other amount, I mean, I think our national debt was about $30 trillion, right? It's huge, right? But this amount of money on top of the asset inflation of that took place in 2008 up until 2020. And then we had another huge asset inflation. Some people call it the K recovery, right? Is that if you had assets, right, in terms of stock, the price of your assets, not necessarily the value, right, but the price of the assets went up that way, but the recovery for the working class went down that way, right? K recovery, right? Um, but and that has been one of the concerns, right? That when the Federal Reserve Bank, the central bank here in the United States, deals with domestic policy, right, which they've done, right, in over these last few years, printing money not necessarily for taking in consideration the global economy. They're printing money in response to domestic situations. Bailing out those banks that were too big to fail in 2008. Bailing out banks today. Like these are the biggest. These are the biggest bank failures since 2008, and here we go. We're bailing them out, and some people say that's I've heard it say that bailout is socialism for the rich, right? But we got to be clear. This is a capitalist system, right? And the role of the government, whether it's the Federal Reserve Bank, which again it's not government. It's a kind of like quasi government. It's a private bank, right? But the federal government, right? Their job is to maintain this economic system as it is, right? So if it means like bailing out some of the institutions, if it means bailing out the banks, that's what we're going to do to preserve this system. But how long are they going to be able to bail it out, right? How long are we going to be able to bail out? And like until some people say, wait a second, like we're we are not getting the advantages of these bailouts, right? The like I was talking to some young men and women today, right? Like I know in one of my classes, I remember a woman who an older woman in my class, and she was talking about in the 60s, right? That her husband, right, who was an engineer, he came home, right, and he was all excited, right? An engineer. Now, you think today engineers, like how much you think an engineer might make today?
150,000.
Right, at least six figures, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least six figures, right? That's today in 2023. But she was saying that when her husband came home and said that he was making $9,000 in the late 60s, right? They were ecstatic, right? $9,000, right? That was good money, um, 50 years ago, and now that's like $9,000. Even that's the kind of money that the working poor is making today in the 21st century, right? And so that is showing that from the late 60s to 2023, the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar has diminished. Okay, so coming back to digital currencies, right? So that's the idea. Why this is significant is how should we be holding our money? Should we be holding it in digital currency? Should we be holding it in dollars? Let's go to another slide, sir. So fiat currency, it's a store of value, right? Again, um, it's like what is money, right? Our currency is a particular form of money, right? It facilitates the exchange process, but it's a depreciating store of value. Now we got about 10 minutes left on here, but so let me continue right here. Fiat money, right? Government issued currency that is not backed by any physical commodity, such as gold or silver, right? Gold is a form of money, right? So some people say that commodity, gold is a commodity. Like for example, gold as a form of commodity. Like there's a gold coin. It's a $50 gold coin, right? And if you take that $50 gold coin and you try to spend it, you could spend it and you would get $50 worth of product, right? But if you took that same $50 gold coin and took it to a gold dealer, a $50 gold coin is an ounce of gold, right? You could get about $2,000 for that $50 gold coin, or the the $1 silver coin, right? You could take a $1 silver coin, and you could take that $1 silver coin to buy. Well, actually, even $1 silver coin wouldn't necessarily buy you a cup of coffee, right? But let's say you had three of them, right? But if you use $1 silver coin, right, you could use it to help buy your cup of coffee. But if you took that $1 silver coin to a silver dealer or any kind of money dealer, right, you get about $20 for that $1 silver coin, right? So so the thing is that there is this disconnect between the money, right, and commodity as money, right, with gold and its stamp value might be $50, but its content value is 2,000. Or silver, its stamp value might be $1, but its content value, its commodity value would be $20. And so, as we move on, right? Let's go to Bitcoin, right? Let's keep going. Okay, Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency, right? Now, so some people would say that Bitcoin is the is digital gold, right? Let's go to the next slide. Let's take a look here. Bitcoin is 21st century money, and it does fit the paradigm shift. And what people like, what that means is that again, for a good part of the history of modern society, right? Again, when ships were made out of wood, gold gold was it, right? That was the currency, right? Whether you were in Spain, Portugal, Europe, the Americas, uh, the Aztecs, the Mayans, right? The Chinese, right? Everybody wanted gold, right? And then when ships were made out of steel, and then we entered into the the age of flight, right? We started, people didn't want to carry the gold, they didn't want to carry the silver. They carried a substitute for gold and silver, right? And that substitute became the form of money. But now we're in the digital age, right? We're in this digital age, and it's like, so what is going to be the approach? Like what are people going to bring to the moon, right? I mean, there's all this effort of going into space, right? If there's going to be transactions taking place and in space, right? Space stations, people talking about going to Mars, what have you,
They're
right?
taking sats.
They're going to be taking satoshis. You're right, right? And what my co-host here was talking about, Sats, right? Sats um, a component, right, or a portion of a Bitcoin, right? They call them satoshis. But Bitcoin, right? Digital age gold, right? Is it gold? Now, again, where there is it's like there's no inherent reason why gold was money. No inherent reason why cowrie shells were money, or water or cows were money, right? We as human beings making money, but I don't think that they're going to be bringing gold and silver into space, right? And the thing is that even we could forget about the space, right? The transactions, right? Moving. We're, you know, like, you know, money, like money right now through the this digital arena can move around the world like that at the speed of light, right? And so digital money, digital currency, Bitcoin in particular, can move around the world as fast as the speed of light, right? Millions of transactions can take place at the same time, um, and it's like can gold and silver do that? No. If you're moving gold and silver, you got to put it on a ship, right? You got to put it on a boat. You got to put it in an airplane. Whereas this 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 new digital currency can move around the world at the speed of light. Transactions, millions of transactions can take place at the same time, right? And so this is one of the advantages of cryptocurrencies in general, but Bitcoin in particular, right? And we'll follow up on this on our next podcast, our cryptocurrency podcast. Bitcoin in particular has inelastic supply, right? And two things. I want to say that it has inelastic supply, and Bitcoin is not controlled by any human being. Like a lot of the other criminal, right? But a lot of the other cryptocurrencies, right? You can identify them with a particular groups of human beings. You can identify them with particular institutions, right? But Bitcoin cannot be identified um, by in relationship to any individual, right? The beauty of Bitcoin as a currency, as a cryptocurrency, or possibly digital gold. Like I said, today is the 13th of March in 2023, right? The price of of Bitcoin dropped down to 19,000 over the weekend, but over the last 24 or 30 hours, right, it moved from 19,000 up to about over 24,000, right? A 20% return or a 20% um, increase over the weekend and throughout Monday. And so the question is, like, is that return going to continue over time? Right? Like one of the things about Bitcoin is that it is volatile right now, um, but there's only 21 million units of Bitcoin, and we'll talk about that in our next podcast. We'll talk about what that means, 21 million units of Bitcoin.
Tell Steffi thank you for tuning in.
Steph, hey, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back on the next third Monday of the month in April. And I guess as we finish, right, again, um, we started a conversation about Bitcoin, but let's recap the significance. This particular podcast it was about cryptocurrencies, but we're doing this podcast in relationship to, like, what is taking place um, in terms of your financial habits, right? And what we're paying attention to is, what do you want to put into your asset column? Do you want to put U.S. dollars into your asset column? Like, how do you want to save, right? Like right now, two things I would say before I sign off, right? Uh, if you're generating income, right, earned income, you do want to save it. But at the same time, I want to say that savers are losers, right? Meaning that if you save $100, right, today, you might, if you save it underneath your bed or something like that, right, a year from now, 2 years from now, the purchasing power of that dollar is going to diminish. Like I've seen it. Have you seen it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Over these especially after the pandemic, after all that money flooded into the economy, I've seen products. I go to the grocery store, the supermarkets. Um, they've tripled in price.
Inflation is real.
Inflation is real. Okay, but so it's like so even though I say save, we're saying savers are losers, right, because of inflation. So it's like, I think there's other ways to save. It could be, right? And I would kind of suggest at least we should consider Bitcoin as also another avenue for savings as we prepare ourselves to understand what it means to become an investor, right? So, as we close up today, right, check us out next Tuesday. We're going to talk about Black political economy, which is using the theoretical framework of political economy as applied specifically to this population of people called Black Americans. That'll be our next podcast in March, and then we'll start the cycle all over again in April with a Physical Friday, the first week of the month, Tech Tuesday, the second week of the month, Crypto Monday, the third week of the month, and Black Political Economy on the fourth week of the month. All right, so those of you in TikTok world, thank you for checking us out. Right, you could follow us on, or you can follow me, Dr. C. Haynes Jr. At all social media. If you want to get in contact us with the organization that I'm a part of, the Academy, you could contact us at cigbuffalo.com, or you could get in contact with us at cigbuffalo@gmail.com. Right. So,
Last point, Stevie said, very informative. I learned investments via my grandparents after experiences Great Depression.
okay.
So shout out to Steph.
Okay, Steph, shout out to you, and check
Thanks,
us out.
Steph.
We
Thank
got
you.
we
Thank
got some
you.
more stuff to share. This is the paradigm shift. We are sharing knowledge that we feel is going to be relevant to you and me in the 21st century. So, peace out. Welcome to a new way.
Tracy says, great live. Thank you so much.
Peace.
Peace.